What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kickass Podcast. We are here today to discuss the WrestleMania 40 kickoff press conference that was yesterday in Las Vegas. It was definitely something that I was not expecting. I figured that they were going to deliver, obviously, with how much they've been hyping a press conference, with it being the first press conference under the TKO umbrella, and just with the tie-in, obviously, with UFC and being the partner to WWE and the TKO grouping. It was very cool to see a different approach to the WrestleMania build and the WrestleMania lineup this year. And the uncertainty of it still. Yes, we did get a confirmation in I guess you would call it the main event of the press conference. But man, I would say the whole event itself was pretty dope. I was, like I said, not expecting what we got. I enjoyed it. A lot of people, I'm not gonna say a lot, but there was some mixed reviews. And I would say maybe more than I was expecting, with negative takes on it. Which is cool. Everyone has their opinion. Obviously, I do as well. That's why I'm here, right? To talk about the cool and crazy world that is wrestling. But I just I kind of expected them to maybe take an approach to the build to WrestleMania, the main event. I was pretty certain it was still going to be Rock and Roman, at least on one of the nights. But man, I wasn't expecting the the outcome that we got, but the beginning of the next chapter for the Bloodline storyline. So we'll definitely, and obviously, be getting into all that later on. But I'm gonna go through the kind of the beginning, middle, and then of course the main event. Like I said, I guess, of the press conference here. I'm not gonna go everything specifically as it happened, word by word, but definitely go over the key moments and just kind of start from the beginning, obviously, because like I said, this was a pretty cool event. If anyone who watches this, it was there, I definitely love to hear and get feedback on the environment there, because it seemed very, obviously, if you're in the area, right, which a lot of people are for Super Bowl weekend and all that, and you're going to this, with it being a Thursday, obviously, as well, that probably helped as play into things. But I'm sure there's a lot of events going on right now and a lot of places you can be. So the people that attended yesterday and went to the stadium that they were at, I'm pretty sure I have it written down here, but it was it was pretty passionate there, and it was pretty vocal. It was a good turnout from what we saw here at home. So I was just really impressed with everything. It was not what I was expecting. I was expecting kind of like their media scrums at the end of the PLEs, almost said pay-per-views, the PLEs that they do now. I was kind of expecting that type of thing and that type of setup, but when I first turned it on and tuned in, I was like, wow, like their production team is next level and top notch, and shout out to all the production crew and everyone who puts that stuff together in a short amount of time. It's just amazing to see what people can do. And man, but like I said, we're gonna get right into it, because obviously I talk a lot. And I definitely want to give everything its proper time and mention maybe a couple things here that stood out to me that were not mentioned and not referenced in the WrestleMania kickoff show, which you would think it would include obvious things and obvious Royal Rumble winners and their stories to the main event. So we'll see. We'll get into that, like I said, as we go on. But with the beginning of the show, we early in the day, they mentioned on Twitter, it'll always be Twitter to me, that Big E and CM Punk were going to be added to the list of panelists to kind of do a kickoff to the kickoff show, which is pretty cool. I was stoked to hear that Punk was going to be there. They showed video clips throughout the day as well of various people arriving to the stadium. I gotta find the name of it, where everyone and everything was held at. Yes, the T-Mobile Arena. That's what it was. Oh, it was driving me nuts. The T-Mobile Arena. Um, but they were showing people arrive throughout the day and throughout the evening. And CM Punk was one of them earlier, and he had his arm in that big brace, metally thing. Obviously, he just had surgery. I believe they said, yeah, he said it was a week removed from surgery. So, and he was not 100% yet, so he's disappointed. Which sounds about right, being Punk. But it's cool that they're including him on commentary and things like that. There was also some type of, I don't know if it was like an official report or just something. I don't know where it was reported from. I'm just gonna put that out there. But I saw it somewhere that Ace Steel had mentioned that WWE had contacted CM Punk or was interested in contacting Punk and having him do commentary during the next however many months he's going to be out recovering, which I'd be here for. You know, part of me wouldn't be surprised if they wanted to keep Punk limited to kind of still build that miss for him. But man, obviously, you know, Punk's thing is his mouth, right? And that's what everyone loves about Punk. So Punk isn't the typical absence makes the heart grow fonder type character, in my opinion. I think with Punk, the more we hear from Punk, the more it makes the heart grow fonder. Either if you love him or it makes you hate him and pisses you off even more. Which depending on the route, you know, is obviously what everyone is here for, right? But regardless, I'm stoked that he was included. I think him and Biggie especially added two interesting and different dynamics to just Cole and Pat McAfee. But I think that also too, it was a good sign with the fact that it wasn't really that scripted, right? They weren't really scripting too many of the interactions, I would say. I wouldn't even say that the scripting I take that back, and I was hesitant to even say that because I think certain people had like maybe certain lines maybe they either kind of went over in the back and shit. I say that, guys, and I would definitely be that person too. I know me, so I would probably more likely than not be writing my shit down in the back if I know, hey, I'm gonna if I was like in the Bianca Belair role, right? If they're like, hey, you got to go out there talk for X amount of time, and your goal is to promote this, this, and this, and to get over this, this, and this. Like I'd be like, all right, bet I'll see you back in X amount of time. You know, hopefully the longer the better. Just because I'm just that type. So I totally get it. You know what I mean? So I'm not knocking that at all. I'm just saying that for the point being that with WWE and wrestling, the word scripted was always such a bad thing, but it didn't feel like that last night. It felt like I said, like a couple things had like I would say maybe just bullet points, if anything, which you obviously need. You know, that's the whole point of every show is to have a beginning, middle, and the end, and to have a focus point. Um, which is cool, you know what I mean? And again, I think that's part of the direction of the new era that they're going in. And I don't know if that's going to be like their coin phrase for every event that they end up doing for every PLE. But if they do, you know, that's cool and I totally get it. You know, it's a sign that I think that phrase kind of represents and acknowledges that hey, like we do have a past, there is a past, but we're moving on and we're going literally into a new era and a new direction and a new realm. So I think that's cool. But getting into it, I say all that because one of my favorite lines and my hopeful or wishful thinking that it led to is when when Cole was introducing Punk, the line that Cole said, and obviously I'm reading some notes here that I took as I mean, no one's gonna remember everything. And to be a little bit more thorough, Cole said, most importantly, being the husband of AJ Lee in describing CM Punk. And I just thought that was perfect. We haven't, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't heard any reference of AJ Lee in that regard in WWE since Punk has been back. Um, I feel like as I say that, maybe there was a slight reference, but I'm nothing like that. Nothing that stood out, at least in my opinion, in that regard. And please, if I'm missing something, definitely drop it in the comments or hit me up on Twitter. You can hit me up on Twitter at ASHMANNS or on Twitter X for the show at Kickash Podcast _. But with that being said, they did reference Biggie and ask him about his neck, which I was very happy that they asked him about. And he said he was good. It was very simple. He said he was good and he thanked the fans for checking in on him. I'm just happy to see that he's there. You know, he's still being included as well, and that he's still providing his take on things. And I like this different direction that they're going into. You know, if he can't be in the ring for now, obviously, you know, his health is the most important thing. So just seeing him out and about and seemingly in great spirits and doing what he does, that's a good sign. You know, and that makes me the happiest. You know, as a fan and just wanting the best for him as a human. You know what I mean? Which I think sometimes gets lost in the sight of us fans, you know, like we just want these people to come back, you know, because we miss X, Y, and Z character, but it's like at the end of the day, the most important thing is these people are human beings. You know what I mean? Which I since I mentioned that, I'll just get this out of the way here too. The fact that people are sending death threats to Ava, the Rock's, Johnson, or the Rock's, the Rock's daughter, it's fucking crazy. Like I don't know what's wrong with people, but it's wrestling, guys. Like, and take it from me, from someone is very passionate about this stuff, who is probably more obsessed with it than I should be. You know what I mean? But there's no way like you should ever take it to that far with anything, whether it's wrestling, sports, anything that you enjoy and that you love in life. Like, come on, like, and that's why we have deranged people and true crime shit out there. But that being said, and moving back on to positive and good shit. Like I said, Pat McAfee and Michael Cole were out there. Then the next thing we know, that they're on stage and they were introducing and setting up the show. Pat mentioned that he had Brock on his show a little bit earlier in the day, which is where the whole Cody crybabies phrase was coined, which I reposted something on Twitter that he didn't get it, or Rock's missing the point or something like that. And I will say, I probably should have waited until I saw how the press conference played out, but I still, it's that's not it, bro. That just it's not a crybaby thing. You know what I mean? And a lot of people are like, oh, well, if you feel some type of way about that phrase, like maybe you should look at yourself in the mirror. Yeah, maybe I should. And like I've said before, like I've been down for Cody for years now, since the whole undesirable to undeniable thing, which I think is very, very relevant in this whole situation. Um, and maybe more so now than ever if you think about it. But I just think it missed the point. But I'm super glad that if he was gonna go on the show, on the Pat McAfee show prior, and kind of plant the seeds for that he was able to follow up in time frame wise and like capitalize on it later on. I want to say tonight, but later on that night, you know what I mean? So that was cool, planting the seeds, and that's what I think the press conference did as a whole. Which I again is another reason why I was super excited. And just I loved everything. I'm not gonna say I loved everything, obviously, but I thoroughly enjoyed the outcome of how they handled it. And I think, and props to them too. And then I'll kind of get off my little pedestal here for them. I'll give them props for how they reacted. You know what I mean? They could have completely tried to ignore the backlash and the whole "we want Cody" thing. I don't think it would have worked. But I don't know if it, like, how heavy the momentum would have continued, or if it would have continued to pick up steam, or if it would have kind of just remained where it's at. But props to them for acknowledging it, and props to The Rock for making a change. Obviously, I'm sure this is not exactly how they expected this to play out. I'm sure, like, people I think have even stated they expected some backlash for all the Cody lovers out there and the Cody crybabies. That they were expecting some type of disdain for The Rock and Roman Reigns being the main event, and Cody handing his victory essentially to The Rock. So I'm very hopeful in that regard too, to see how this whole regime plays out. And like I said, we're going to get into different angles and I think different ways The Rock could play into things long term too, which is pretty interesting to say here in 2024. Um, but there was also a point in the little pre kickoff to the kickoff show where Biggie said that they were I think Michael Cole had asked, it was some question, obviously, regarding, I think, like, who they wanted to win or something to that effect, or something to I think it was, what was it here? Yeah, it was pretty much just asking, like, who Michael Cole was asking them who they wanted them to. Oh, yeah, that's what it was. So they were talking about how Cody, that Punk rather had been through something similar with The Rock when he made his prior return back in 2013. And Punk had even mentioned that at some point too. He was like, "Where were you people in 2013 when I needed you?" or some shit like that, which is pretty cool. And I love how they're not scared to reference the past, especially not going forward. But Punk had said that I'm sorry, Cole had said the situation is like replacing one of the Super Bowl quarterbacks with Tom Brady. And Punk said that he would be upset if he was the replaced quarterback, but he would understand. And I was like, okay. And because he literally went through the same shit with The Rock in 2013. It's just I'm not gonna get into that here because you know how I can ramble and get off on a tangent, but we'll maybe do a deeper dive into that at some point and tie everything in together, especially probably closer when Punk actually comes back. But Biggie said that he was there to beat the drum for Cody, and he mentioned how he does the Make a Wish events, and he pointed out how Cody was there for the Hoover family, the Luke Harper, Brody Lee family when everything happened. And I just think that that's really cool. Again, that they're not afraid to mention stuff like that and that they're including stuff like that and just making it like tying it into real life too and making it more blurred in that regard and kind of showing you like, hey, Cody really is this good of a human being. Like it's not just what we see on TV. This is who he is in real life too. And these wrestlers see that and witness that. So I like how they kind of tie that in. And on another level too, if you think about it, I don't know why this just popped into my head, but like with Drew McIntyre, you know what I mean? When Punk first came back, Drew mentioned, I saw you I saw you earlier on in our careers when we were traveling together, right? Like I've seen the true Punk, not just the guy we see on TV. So it's cool, but the difference with that is like, obviously Biggie had a very specific reference and Drew just had generalities in that regard. But yeah, it's just cool. I'm just really digging the vibe with a lot of different things that they're doing and just little things like that they're changing that aren't big things and isn't really a big deal, but I appreciate and I notice and maybe I noticed too much or and I just noticed weird things, but I just appreciated that. But moving on, like I said, because I'm not going to go through everything specifically here, because I'm not going to hold everyone up when we all have the same end goal and the same main thing that we wanted to check out. But too, if you guys hear my dogs barking in the backgrounds, because their food is actually being delivered. So there's that. So I apologize in advance, but they should stop in a second. Or if they do. But really quick before we move on to the actual, I guess, kickoff show itself, Cole had asked everyone on the panel who they thought that Roman Reigns wanted to face. And McAfee and Biggie both picked The Rock. And Punk made an interesting point. He said he understands box office, so obviously The Rock would be the main choice. And that Reigns would want The Rock. But Punk said that Rock didn't eliminate him from the Royal Rumble match. Cody Rhodes did. And Punk said that it's more about who Roman doesn't want to face. And he said that's Cody, which I thought was very interesting and very just interesting, I guess I'll leave it at for Punk to say, and I think it could be revealing, I guess, too, and so that we look back on for a long-term build with Punk and Cody. I think, yes, they did obviously have contact, obviously, again, like I said, in the Royal Rumble main event, because Cody is the one who eliminated Punk, but that was just barely scratching the surface of what I think their story can and will be in WWE when their paths do cross. So I think all the support that Punk has been showing Cody is going to be referenced again, and it's clips and footage that they're building up. I think for a specific reason, because there's been a few different things that we've seen backstage too, with Punk congratulating Cody, telling him to finish his story a few times. So it's just very interesting to me, very interesting, with how loving Punk seems to be with Cody, and I'm just wondering if it's building to something that's going to backfire later. So it's very cool, like I said, to see and just little seeds that may or may not be being planted. But moving on to the show, Triple H came out and went over pretty much like a 40-year like brief synopsis of the history of WrestleMania, which I'm not going to go through here. It was pretty cool to hear though, so if you want to check it out, definitely recommending it. And if you haven't seen this or if you're on the fence of watching the press conference in general, I definitely recommend it. I think it was a little over an hour, maybe like an hour and 15 minutes or some shit. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Pretty cool. But with the main show itself, Cole and McAfee were back on the stage, pretty much to kind of set things up, and they turned it over to Bianca Belair, who came out first. She had a video package and then came out on stage, which is cool. I obviously had, and I think I mentioned it on the little short that I did. She was on a poster, or maybe it was in. It doesn't matter which video, but regardless, I mentioned obviously that she's on the poster, which is cool to see. But someone who's not is Bailey, which I'm going to get into here in a minute. But I just think it's cool what they're doing with Bianca. I think I it's very revealing as well how they feel about Bianca, and I think it's very similar to Rhea Ripley. I feel like Bianca and Ripley are on lateral paths on different planes, really, and they're just waiting for an opportunity to collide. And I don't even think it's going to be next year. I think maybe like 2 3 years from now. I think we're just going to keep building and building and building just the stardom of these two women. And I think it's going to culminate maybe WrestleMania 45, I would say, in a WrestleMania, true WrestleMania main event for possibly night one if they're still doing the split nights, or it could be a repeat of the WrestleMania, ironically enough, 35 main event with the women main eventing that WrestleMania as well. So I think that'd be cool, and I think that would be something that would be very poetic as well, especially just seeing how they both were really crafted as well. And then in NXT, I believe Rhea did have experience, obviously, in Australia prior to coming over here. Um, but I think WWE, or NXT rather, really kind of helped her develop, in my opinion. Could be completely wrong. Um, but in my opinion, that's where she kind of honed her craft and really like morphed into the Rhea Ripley that we've seen on the main roster. And even when she first debuted on the main roster, she wasn't the form that she is now, which is very cool to see. And that's why I said with Bianca and Rhea, I think that's a long term build, and that's what I would do. Unless things happen and you have to, I don't want to say rush it, but kind of accelerate it. I would try to hold off for those two really culminating at WrestleMania 45. I was about to say 35 again. But with that being said, I really too I feel like Bianca is just a star, and just seeing how it looks effortless with her being out there, just and seeing how big the stage was, and how like when they do like a big like wide view of the stage, and it's just massive, and then you're just this tiny person, you know what I mean, on this massive stage. So I can't imagine what it's like being there, you know what I mean? So and being that person. So shout out to all of them, you know what I mean? Like I said earlier, I don't I couldn't do that shit. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't imagine being them. But with Bianca Belair, like I said, I'm very interested to see her, like she mentioned as well with her speech. She promoted their Hulu, I think it's on Hulu, their show with Montez, which I have not seen yet, but I do plan on checking it out. But so she was obviously like promoting that, but then she was referencing her journey to WrestleMania and how this is the first time, at least as of right now, that well, I guess pretty certain she's going into WrestleMania without being a champion unless something crazy happens. Um, and not necessarily in the line of path for a championship, which is why I've said earlier, or before rather, I think that is going to play into her and Jade Cargo. I think Bianca is going to find herself in a situation where she needs a partner, she needs some saving, and Jade is going to make the great escape, or the great escape, the great save, right? And come to Bianca's rescue. And I think that that's going to set up their WrestleMania tag team title match. And I think that's going to be where Bianca and Jade win their first championships together. And I think that's going to be the start of their match at WrestleMania 41. So that's just kind of where I'm going and what I think for maybe Bianca, and maybe her path to WrestleMania. Yes, she's not going to win singles gold, but I think she's kind of been there, done that right now. And I think right now it'd be really cool to see what she could do with Jade and what she can do in the tag division. Because I think she's definitely at that level where she can kind of give like a little bit of rub to Jade, but she still wants to and needs to be like built up too. Maybe not needs to be, but kind of like you should continue to build her up, you know what I mean? Because the sky's the limit with someone in a character like that. So, and obviously the dedication and the time and the seriousness that she puts into it. So yeah, man, I just think the sky's the limit, like I said, with her, and I'm really excited to see how it plays out, especially within the next few years, because I think that that's really going to be crucial. I think too, in my opinion, for her and for Rhea Ripley, for that matter. Which leads me to the next guest, which was Rhea Ripley, who came out. Rhea came out and she just looked like $1,000,000 to me. Like it was just the jacket that she was wearing. It was just perfect. Everyone loved her. She said Las Vegas mommy's here, and there was just tons of mommy chants. Just just so cool to see too. Like when they pan to the crowd, it's just like everyone, like kids chanting it, grown women chanting it, men chanting it, which obviously, just everyone, anyone and everyone chanting it. It's just something funny and kind of surreal to see. And again, like pretty much everything that I just said for Bianca Belair, you can copy and paste with for Rhea as well. But I think Rhea is kind of um she kind of has just like a different vibe and a different aura to her. And that's why I said too, like I kind of want to keep them separate as long as you can to kind of see really what they both morph into. But there's just something about Rhea that she's just they have something there with Bianca as well. But I think Rhea just commands a presence and like commands attention differently than a lot of other people, male or female, that I think like when she's involved in the segment, and whether it's indirectly or she's physically there, it's about her. And I think there's just something special about that. So that's why I think keep them separate so you can figure out and catapult and just like capitalize on that Korea and enhance that because Bianca has that too. It just hasn't been really focused on yet, like it kind of has with Rhea. And I say that because with the Judgment Day, right? Which is crazy to say, like, because I was one of those people where I was done with the Judgment Day maybe like a year and a half ago. Maybe I'd have to go back and think of the timeline, but at one point I was like, okay, like what are we really doing? But they just completely did a 180 when Dom joined, which is again kind of crazy to say, but I think that's really what helped kind of Rhea grow in that breakout role in the sense that like she's these guys and Finn Balor being a former champion and just like all these she's the main focus on. It's not like a typical like woman like oh like the men are fond over her and like it's just it's different, you know what I mean? And she's not dictating in like a sexual way or anything like that. It's just I love what they're doing with it. It's just it's different and um, I think that's why I say just keep them separate to get as much out of both of them as you can, and then have them collide when you need to. But Rhea was going on and saying how, like I said, she's the center of the universe, and people need to figure out since Bailey didn't want to fight Rhea that they need to figure out who her challenger is, and she's not pressed essentially type shit. And then of course brought Becky out. No Bailey, no nothing. But Becky came out, and of course, I'm a big fan of Becky as well. But Becky did pretty much what you would expect, and it was a very good segment though still. But I just say that because there's nothing really that stood out. The one line that did stand out, obviously, is "Mommy's going to learn what it's like to be a bottom." When Becky says that she wins the chamber and faces her at Mania, because Mommy's always on top, right? So that was it was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, it kind of set up what we kind of expected already with the Elimination Chamber, with Becky winning in Australia and then leading to face Rhea Ripley at the WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia, almost said in Las Vegas. But and I will say that Rhea, and I like that she referenced like her WrestleMania is gonna be in Australia next, or not even next month, in like 2 weeks or something. So she's having like a WrestleMania before WrestleMania. So shout out to her, and I'm very happy for that. But moving on here, we're gonna get right to it because I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to go too long here for you guys. But that brought us to the main event of the press conference. Again, they had some video packages spread throughout the show, but if you want to see that, go check that out. Seth came out first. He was introduced again by Cole and McAfee, who were kind of threading things along throughout the night, like I mentioned earlier. And Rollins did what he normally does. He didn't have his brace on, unless he had it inside of his pants, but I doubt he did. He did not have the knee brace, which was a good sign, and I'm happy for him. He can, at least get some movement out without being confined to a knee brace, and I'm sure that's much more comfortable for him and travel wise too. But he did his whole normal shtick, and he was about to announce Cody Rhodes, the two-time Royal Rumble winner, when Roman Reigns came out, which I was very first surprised to see. And I liked it. It was a cool dynamic. We don't get to see Reigns and Rollins interact directly, which is very cool. And first, I think, yeah, Rollins got the first line in. He said, "Hey guys," he showed up for work for once. Of course, referencing Roman Reigns never working. He says, "I love to see it. Good to see you, big brother." So I love the pettiness with Seth. I just love the how he can't let it go, and it's just perfect for me. I am here for stuff like that. But Roman followed up saying that Rollins showed up for work in his wife's shoes, which okay. Roman stated that he wanted to talk about someone who matters. Let's talk about Cody Rhodes, the man who can't make his own choice, Mr. Hesitation. Roman said that if you hesitate, your moment is going to move on. Roman said it's no longer Cody's decision, and that Roman, would decide who he faces in the main event of WrestleMania. Roman motioned at Rollins and said, "Get this bum out of here already," because Rollins was still standing there. And Rollins stayed out on stage throughout everything after this playoff. He was kind of towards the side at some points, but he was still out there the entire time. I don't know why someone had mentioned on Twitter that like he got kicked off the stage. And like, no, he was obviously there the entire time. Like, I don't know, like, did you watch it? Or if you didn't, that's fine, but like, whatever. But anyway, and after Roman said that, he announced that he chooses to face The Rock, and Rollins said Rollins like, that's not how it works. Obviously, because Roman did win the Rumble. Then that led to The Rock. Still no Cody Rhodes, but again, I really liked it because you're building and building and building, and just really emphasizing that Cody is the man. Cody is the MVP in all this. He is the coveted one. He's the kind of key factor in all this, which is it's exactly what you wanted to do, exactly how you needed to set it up. And you're really they didn't even really do anything, to be honest. Like, they're just taking advantage of the love and the goodwill and the rapport that Cody has built and Cody has established, and they're just amplifying it, which I think is just brilliant and the obvious thing to do. It's not rocket science. Like, it's almost even frustrating to even mention and compliment, because it's like, duh, like, that's exactly what you should do, but whatever. Again, The Rock's music played and he walked on stage and he stood right in between Reigns and Rollins, which was very cool to see. Again, the stage was huge and it was a really cool setup. Very simple, but simple is better in my opinion sometimes. Um, there was a lot of boos though. After the music stopped, there was a whole bunch of boos. I would say probably, like, honestly, in my opinion, probably 80-20, which is why I'd be fascinated to see any like direct feedback from anyone in the arena. But he, of course, he would do the would hold the mic to your mouth type thing, and with The Rock, he holds it there, and that's normally his thing. He holds it there to kind of build, and then he goes finally, because you're waiting for him to say finally, so you can say the line along with him. And he does, as I said it, because as he's trying to even put the mic to his mouth, just more and more boos, and it just got louder and louder and louder, which was just crazy to me. And I was just thankful that it wasn't like a two-face type thing. You know what I mean? Like, you're not you're not the fan that's going on Twitter and like shit talking this, but when you're there in person, you're like, oh yeah, I'm so happy for it. Like, no, like, if you're gonna shit talk it on Twitter, shit talk it in the arena too. You know what I mean? And I'm happy that the fans actually did that from what we heard. So shout out to you guys. But he finally got his line out. Finally The Rock is back to Las Vegas, all that. He asked the fans if they thought if they thought Roman Reigns would beat him at WrestleMania. Roman Reigns laughed. Um, and then The Rock then asked the fans if he thought he would beat the tribal chief at WrestleMania. Rock looked back at the crowd, and then "We Won Cody" chant broke out. And then he said, or do you think that The Rock and Roman Reigns would be the biggest main event in the history of WrestleMania? And when he started going that route, that's when I first was like, okay, like, he's going a different route with this. Like, that was my first, like, okay, interesting moment. More people booed though, more and more boos. He said he loved the passion. He said, so to members of the press, welcome. I'm glad you're here to the WWE Universe. And then more people chanting "We Want Cody." He said, to the WWE Universe, welcome. To everyone watching around the world, welcome. He did the millions and millions thing, which everyone played along to, which I get, because you want to be involved, but it's like, pick a side. He said, he welcomed his millions and millions, and then he said, uh, he introduced everyone to the Cody Crybabies, and that's again playing off of his whole Pat McAfee, Pat McAfee show appearance earlier in the day, where he planted that seed. He said he had something to say that he thinks they would like. He paused after a couple of lines because he started getting the "what" chants, which I think again was very interesting. He said, he wanted to talk to the fans and show them something that the fans would have to respect. So he pointed to the big screen, which had the Bloodline family tree, which I was very cool. It was pretty cool to see. I had to go back later on and look for a screenshot of it to obviously like really take a look at it. And that shit is just fucking crazy, which we're not gonna get into right here, but golly, like it's that shit's just never ending. It literally is like a CVS receipt. Like that shit just does not stop, bro. And shout out to them, you know what I mean, keeping it in the family, but like damn. It literally took that whole screen to like zoom it out and to really just it's just fucking crazy. But at least we got a little bit of explanation, you know what I mean? He kind of gave us the backstory of it. He said the Rock, or the Rock mentioned that the top of his tree was his grandfather and then Roman's grandfather, and he said that if the fans can't see that there is proof that there's only one dominant and powerful royal family in professional wrestling, and think that it's not Rock versus Roman Reigns at the biggest WrestleMania event in all of in history, in all of the times, as Matt Hardy would say, uh, then in Rock speak, it doesn't matter what you think. So again, with all of that being said, I was like, okay, they're really like he's playing into this shit. Like even I didn't know how far he was gonna go. In my personal version of The Rock was Hollywood Rock. And I wished we got more and more time with Hollywood Rock. And now I just think that we may get that in a different version. But I'm just and that's what I'm hopeful for because that's just gonna be perfect. Um But after he said it doesn't matter what you think, he declared that it would be the WWE Universal Champion versus the People's Champion. And he said whether the fans liked it or didn't like it, it would be the biggest main event in the history of pro wrestling and it would be bound by blood. He held up his hand and then Reigns grabbed it and they hugged. And then finally, we hear from Cody. We hear a hold on, and Cody Rhodes made his way out to the stage. No music, no pyro, no nothing. Just Cody came out with a mic. He was censored. And he said this is bullshit. There's a whole bunch of censoring too, which kind of took away from it, which sucked. I didn't know Peacock, which I guess makes sense. It's family friendly being NBC, but it's like y'all are streaming. It's like come on, bro. Anyway, Cody said that um he said this is bullshit. He said that Reigns was trying to dictate what would happen at WrestleMania. He said that he has a lot of stroke, but it's not right. Cody says, I won the Royal Rumble, which duh, that's what we've been fucking saying. Like that's what we said last week, bro. And Rhodes said that he and Rock had many wonderful conversations, but he has made his decision, which he announced on Instagram prior, that he made his decision, not the actual pick. But he said at WrestleMania 40 in the main event, I choose you, Roman Reigns. Um, Finally, you know what happened last week. Why did you say, yeah, I'll face you, Roman, just not at WrestleMania? And then that's the main problem that I have with this. And with how great that with how great the main event is going to be with Roman and Cody if they stick with this, and how we may not even care at that point, this little hiccup, if you want to call it that. Um, I just feel like it didn't even have to be that way. It didn't even have to be a problem. It didn't even have to be a cleanup. We could have gotten here without doing all the shit and having Cody just say the shit last week. You know what I mean? Because obviously people didn't want that. So getting that out of the way and saying that Roman Reigns said Cody must be crazy. Then that's when Triple H, Adam Pearce, and Nick Aldis joined everyone on stage. Reigns said it was a done deal. Reigns told Cody to go to the losers table. And that the number twos will have you now type shit. I think something to that effect. He said that Cody had his moment last year and called Cody a chapter in his Roman Reigns book. Reigns said that Cody is irrelevant, just like his father. Cody then called out Roman for daring to talk about family and then asked how Jey Uso is doing, which thank you for the tie in there. Cody said that if Roman's grandfather or The Rock's grandfather was there, they would be ashamed of Reigns, which, again, thank you. Just keeping it about the story. The family story, the whole story that it could have been the entire time. Rock stepped forward and he said, let me make something perfectly clear for you. When you talk about his family, you're talking about my family. When you're talking about his ancestors, you're talking about my ancestors. And when you're talking about his blood, you're talking about my blood. So now we have a problem. That's when The Rock slapped Cody across the face and shit got real. Okay? Cody lost his mind. That's when Triple H, Paul Pierce, Adam Pierce, Paul Pierce. Can you imagine? Paul Pierce and Nick all just stepped in and was trying to hold Cody back. And then that's when, just pretty much like I said, all hell broke loose. Then Rollins came back out of nowhere, and Rollins was pissed because I guess Rollins' take on things is like, yo, Rock, you're not gonna come in here and cause all this shit. So that's why he was sticking up for Cody there. But yeah, they pretty much were just trying to contain Cody, try to get him backstage. Finally got him to the back. Rollins was to the back. Then they left the stage with The Rock and Roman Reigns. I'm so the Roman Reigns. But the last thing that we heard Rock say, I'm pretty certain it was the last thing, was saying, "Open your mouth about our family again." And then there was a clip showing Rock and Roman with Paul Heyman, of course, leaving backstage and walking to either, I'm sure, their limo car or whatever. Um, but it's very interesting to see the complete opposite direction, in my opinion, that they're going in. I don't think this is the direction that they thought they were going to go in from start. And I think the long term, in my opinion, if both sides, being WWE and The Rock, can do this scheduling wise, I think what you want to do is play long ball with this. You have The Rock and Roman Reigns embrace the bloodline and have The Rock literally be the leader, be the tribal chief, be the high chief, and be the head of the table. Be what everything that Roman has claimed to be, have The Rock actually be on TV. And not saying he has to be out there obviously every week, but enough to establish that in the way that Roman has been established, just to put it in our face and to put this version of The Rock literally in our face, to see like, okay, like if you're gonna hate The Rock, like you're gonna really hate The Rock type shit. You know what I mean? And I that's why I said earlier, I appreciate The Rock playing into this and not being so worried about his appearance being this big, in real life, big star. You know, he's one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. You know what I mean? So for him to embrace the hate and possible hate, and that's what I said, with them going this direction, they didn't turn Roman. They didn't attempt to turn Roman face. The Rock joined forces with Roman Reigns. Roman is a bad guy. So the fact that The Rock joined forces with Roman Reigns and left together, and he's standing up for his family, and it's not it's not a power struggle. They are on the same side. I think this is literally the beginning of a new book, like a part two for the Bloodline type thing. And I think this is gonna play out from now. WrestleMania is going to be key, I think, with the direction they went. And Triple H said it was official. I think he posted it either on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. The official WrestleMania poster, and now again or officially has Cody Rhodes facing off against Roman Reigns for the main event. And I don't think that's going to change. I don't think that's going to change. And I'm obviously fucking happy about it. You know, I mean, that's the only thing that we wanted. The main thing that we wanted from WrestleMania. And if you're going to stick with Cody and you're going to have him win the Rumble, have him face Reigns. That's a no-brainer. So I'm happy that I don't want to say course corrected, but I'm happy they acknowledged it. And whether this was part of some elaborate plan all along, whatever. Not in my opinion. I think they were really gonna do Rock and Roman. But I say all that to say, now this is, like I said, with the beginning of like the part two, a separate and new book for the Bloodline. I don't think that The Rock screws over Roman at WrestleMania. I think what they're gonna do is have The Rock just endorse Roman Reigns even more, especially put more and more hype on social media and more focus on Roman Reigns and the bloodline and the family tree, and just have that continue to be emphasized. And then when Roman loses at WrestleMania 40, because he will lose at WrestleMania 40 to Cody Rhodes, I'm not even questioning it at this point. I'm not putting it out there. He will lose at WrestleMania 40 to Cody Rhodes. When he does, I think The Rock is going to take that personally. I think that is going to be a huge blow to the family. I think The Rock is going to really lay on Roman and be like, yo, you lost in the marquee event. This, we all agreed, this is the biggest, and this was the big, and at that point, they'll have the facts. This was the biggest WrestleMania in history, and you blew it. You lost it for the family. You blew it for the bloodline. This is, if you were gonna lose, then we should have kept Cody out of it, and I should have been in the main event type thing. At least if you're gonna lose, like, at least the family wins type shit. You know what I mean? And whether you do that immediately right after WrestleMania, which I think maybe not. I think you haven't addressed it, but obviously you don't have the match or anything anywhere prior, any physicality between Roman and Rock. But I think that plants the first big flag of dissension in the bloodline. I think that makes Solo question things. I think that makes, or question everything. I think that makes Jimmy question everything. I think Naomi is going to align back with Jimmy, and Jim, and I think Naomi is going to be, I don't, maybe not the first or maybe the second kind of big, not kind of big influence in Jimmy, and show him the light again. You know what I mean? Especially if we do end up getting a Jay versus Jimmy singles match at WrestleMania. Again, all this is post Mania. I think with him finally and getting that out of his system, facing his brother, I think he's just going to be steering back in that direction anyway. So I think that'll be something that'll benefit from this. And I think, like I said earlier, Solo is going to be questioning things. And I think you're going to bring in people like Jacob Fatu. So I think you're really going to have a good foundation for the next 6-8 months. Again, Rock's probably not going to be there every week, every month, every other month type thing. Maybe just for the big events. Maybe you have something marquee at SummerSlam. You know what I mean? Like maybe you have a big match with Roman Reigns, regardless of who that's against. Obviously not The Rock, probably. But I think all this builds to, long story short, to The Rock and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 41. I think each year they're just gonna want it to get bigger and bigger and bigger. They've already sold everything they're gonna sell essentially at this point for WrestleMania 40. Now the focus is next year. Now, since everyone is hating The Rock, you know, not to that extreme, but some people are disliking The Rock, play into that. Okay, cool. If The Rock is on board, which clearly he literally is on board, he's on the board of directors. He ain't going nowhere. You know what I mean? Unless God forbid something happens physically, I don't see anything happening to The Rock. And again, this will give him even more time to get in ring shape. Like everyone has always said, there's a big difference between being in shape, obviously, which no question he is, and being in ring shape. So I think that sets the stage perfectly. I think, like I said, I really appreciate what they did at the press conference. I think it still leaves us with a lot of questions, which is great. But I think it did answer some key questions. And I think it really took a twist that I was not expecting. And I'm really intrigued to see how it plays out. I really appreciate you guys for checking out the review show here. I'm hoping to do another show within the next few days. With today being Friday rather. We'll see what happens on SmackDown tonight. Maybe I don't think I'm going to have time with, especially this being Super Bowl weekend. Have some things I got to do this weekend. But maybe on Monday or Tuesday we'll get another show out. Like I said, depending on how things go. But thank you guys so much for checking out the pod. If you have any feedback, any comments, anything at all, like I said, feel free to leave a comment on YouTube or on TikTok at Kickash Podcast or on Twitter/X. Hate the X part. It's at Kickash Podcast _ or you can check me out personally at ASHMANNS on Twitter. Thank you guys so much. Y'all have a good one.